Many have tried to invade Russia in the middle of the winter, and all have failed. In a strange decision, the Soviets tried the same ludicrous idea at the beginning of World War II and attempted to invade perhaps the only people who knew the season's harsh conditions as well as they did, or even better. Indeed, the Finnish continued to hold their ground against their powerful enemy months into the invasion. However, it all changed with the appearance of a curious little craft that gave the Soviets the upper hand against the overly skillful Finns, the Aerosani, an inventive motorized snow sled with an aircraft propeller. As documented in rarely seen footage from the Winter War, the fast snow tanks would suddenly pop up in the middle of the whiteness, much to the dismay of those fighting nature on foot. Leverage. 3 months after the outbreak of World War II, the Soviet Union decided to invade Finland. The Soviets had made several demands, including that the Finnish cede vast border territories. And even though they offered other areas in exchange and claimed security threats to Leningrad, the Finnish government did not accept their demands. However, the Soviets would not yield and started an open confrontation that would be known as the Winter War. The invaders fell upon the Finnish with all their military strength, surpassing them not just in tanks and aircraft, but in sheer manpower. Surprisingly, the Soviet Union initially endured heavy losses while making little headway. For over 2 months, Finland repelled the invaders, inflicting severe damage on the troops while fighting at -45 degrees Fahrenheit. The defenders had vast knowledge of the terrain and were more accustomed to harsh winter conditions than the Soviets themselves. As such, the Finnish managed to keep their enemy at bay despite the Soviet Union's supremacy, at least for a few weeks. Retaliation. After being clearly overpowered, the Soviets decided to develop more effective tactics for what they called general winter conditions, and resorted to the notable Aerosani, or motorboat snowmobiles on skis. The nifty light vehicle was initially used for transport, liaison, and medical evacuation in deep snow conditions. The Aerosanis, handled by the Soviet armored forces, would keep communication between units and ferry supplies to forces operating at significant distances. They could also tow 4 men on skis while carrying up to 5 more, and could mount a machine gun ring on the roof. Still, due to their poor hill climbing ability, they had to be deployed in open country, frozen lakes, rivers, or any flat terrain. Moreover, the Aerosanis had limited maneuverability on winding forest roads, but the vehicles could reach an outstanding speed of 25 to 35 kilometers per hour, even in harsh winter conditions. Within a few months, the Soviets had finally turned the odds in their favor. Origins. Back in 1940, there was reason to believe that the Soviets had stolen plans for the so-called air sleighs from American aviator Chester B. Wing, who had built an early snowmobile for civilian purposes, such as transport between towns during the winter. However, a photograph dating back to the pre-World War I era showed otherwise. In 1910, none other than the father of helicopters, Igor Sikorsky, posed beside his prototype, a rudimentary motorized sled. Moreover, it is believed that the first Aerosani was built by Sergei Nezhdanovsky as early as 1903 to 1905. The first models, constructed under Sikorsky's guidance, used light plywood and reused aircraft engines and propellers to thrust the sleds. Andrei Tupolev, who would later be remembered for creating the main Soviet heavy bombers, was the one to design the first successful series for the Army, which initially used 2 models. The small KM-5 was the first one, and was conceived for transport and reconnaissance while being able to mount a machine gun. The NKL-6 then precluded a series of multi-purpose light-armored Aerosanis. These vehicles were organized into battalions of 45 units, either for transport or combat, and each was divided into 3 companies and deployed to support ski infantry for shock operations. Still, the heavier machine gun-armed models provided the primary support during the raids, and they could never be deployed in direct assaults, as they were unarmored and thus unable to withstand mortar fire. Consequently, the speedy sleds were much more helpful in surprise raids against unprotected or unassuming enemies. As proof of the vehicle's success, the Finnish, who were experts in ski infantry tactics, adopted the Aerosani, using the ones they captured from the Soviets. Off guard. After the Red Army's initial poor performance against the Finns, the negative Western opinion of the Soviet military was confirmed, and Adolf Hitler was led to believe that an attack on the Soviet Union would be easier than expected. Then, within 15 months of interim peace, the Germans struck in the summer of 1941. Moreover, the continuation war between the Finnish and the Soviets also took off. As the war progressed, Soviet leaders realized the advantages of snowmobiles in below-zero temperatures and ordered every motor sled in the country to be available for military purposes. Likewise, they developed new models while improving older ones, providing a wide variety of Aerosanis within the Red Army ranks. Also, the Red Army reorganized its units after their humbling Winter War experience. The first units equipped with Aerosanis appeared in January of 1942 and played a valuable part in the Battle of Moscow, but they reached their peak a year later. In the winter offensive of 1942-43, the Aerosanis were finally used in significant numbers as combat vehicles. Due to their incredible speed at the time and high capacity to cover snowy roadless terrains, it was not unusual for the Aerosleds to catch the enemy off guard. Their raids were short yet frequent and came in from several directions at once. Such a tactic also significantly influenced the enemy's psychology and morale. Versatility. The snow sleds gave the defenders an overwhelming advantage. The Soviets could operate off the roads under German control, much like in partisan warfare. After several successful raids from behind enemy lines, the Soviets destroyed the German rear area installations and managed to capture their ammunition and equipment. Indeed, each snow vehicle could carry up to 500 kilograms of fuel and ammunition, and could be fitted not only with a machine gun, but also a medium mortar or even a small-caliber anti-tank gun. Moreover, lightly armored versions were protected by 10 millimeters of steel plate on the front. One of the most successful series was designed by Tupolev, the ANT-1 through ANT-5. The armored NKL-26 was designed by M. Andreev, while the smaller and unarmored GAZ-98, or RF-8, powered by a GAZ M1 truck engine and a durable metal propeller, was created by Gorky Narkorechflota. The Nazis tried to even the odds against the defenders, and, like the Finnish had done, also used the motorized Aerosanis. Still, they never produced any of their own, and would instead employ those seized from the Soviets. For all their resourcefulness, the Germans would rarely engage in combat using the sleds. In truth, they merely used them for transport purposes. But the fact that even they adopted them is proof enough of the impressive role the innovative vehicles played at one point in time. Thank you for watching our video. Please make sure to hit the thumbs up button, and if you enjoy military history and want to learn more about technological developments, subscribe to all our Dark Documentaries channels and hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest content. Stay tuned.